One of the most common questions I get asked is how I stay thin and healthy looking well into my mid-50s. What people don't know is that for most of my life, I was thin, but not healthy at all on the inside. And even staying thin wasn't intentional. It was an unintended side effect of what I now realize was due to what's called upper airway resistance syndrome. Let me explain. But before I give you my story, please do me a favor and click on the thumbs up and subscribe buttons below right now. This will help a lot more people looking for this information to find me. And if you already subscribed, thank you so much. Your support helped me to just reach the 5 million total views milestone. This gives me more motivation to create more content that's helpful to you and your loved ones. Please also remember to forward my videos to anyone that you think may find it helpful. First of all, my current state of good health is not from good genes. My mother died from advanced stomach cancer in her early 60s, and my father due to complications of prostate cancer treatment in his early 70s. And my aunt on my father's side died of breast cancer in her late 40s. My family immigrated from South Korea when I was 6 years old, and we settled down in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia until the 7th grade, after which we then moved to the metro New York City area. Growing up, I was always a very long sleeper and had trouble waking up in the mornings. Throughout high school, college, and medical school, I often fell asleep in classes. Fortunately, I ended up going into a profession where I moved around a lot while seeing patients and standing all day long during surgery. Even then, I never felt like I ever got a refreshing night's sleep. As a child, I was seeing dentists constantly since I loved candy. I also had one lower premolar tooth removed when much younger, and just after starting my medical practice, I had my 2 upper wisdom teeth removed as well. Then everything changed after I got married and started practicing medicine and surgery. I wrote about this in my book, Sleep Interrupted. After our first son Jonas' pregnancy, Kathy gained almost 50 pounds. She was miserable during and after pregnancy, and she also suffered from severe postpartum depression. With her second son, Devin, things were different. She didn't gain that much weight, but after her delivery, she was always extremely tired, and her normally low blood pressure dropped even further, causing her to feel dizzy and lightheaded, especially when she stood up. She even underwent an MRI to see if she was having a stroke when her arm went numb. Fortunately, everything was fine. We were in bed together one night, ready to go to sleep, when we started talking about Kathy's different experiences with both pregnancies. I asked her what made a difference to make her feel better after her first pregnancy. After thinking about it for a few seconds, she mentioned that she felt better after losing all of her pregnancy weight. That's when a bright light bulb clicked on just above my head, my Eureka moment. I just diagnosed her father with obstructive sleep apnea, and Kathy has her father's facial features. She probably had sleep apnea during pregnancy, even after delivery. One known hallmark of delivering a baby is that the high levels of progesterone during pregnancy drop significantly afterwards. Progesterone helps to support the uterus and the developing baby, but also stimulates breathing, so the muscles to drive breathing work much better, including when the mother is sleeping. Once that's gone after delivery, Kathy had to get used to lower levels of progesterone, but she still had all the pregnancy weight. This explained all of Kathy's experiences. But with her second pregnancy, things were very different. She had low blood pressure, was dizzy and lightheaded, and was miserable. Coincidentally, I had just read a study by Dr. Christian Guilleminault, one of the founding fathers of sleep medicine at Stanford, about what's called upper airway resistance syndrome. This condition is different from obstructive sleep apnea in that people are mostly younger men and women and thin, but don't obviously have obstructive sleep apnea on a sleep study. However, when he placed a pressure probe in these subjects' esophagus, he found tremendously negative vacuum pressures with each breath that was inhaled. This caused major sleep disruption, but didn't last long enough to be called apneas or hypopneas, since it didn't last for more than 10 seconds. Later on, other studies found that these people also tended to have low blood pressure, were dizzy and lightheaded when getting up, and had cold hands or feet, along with various digestive problems, anxiety and depression, hypothyroidism, headaches, and other various somatic syndromes. This described Kathy to a T. And in retrospect, I probably had some degree of UARS most of my life as well. Typically, people with UARS tend to be very thin, like me. What Guilleminault found was that about 13% of people with UARS progress into sleep apnea every year, especially if they gain weight as they age. It's been observed that UARS will keep you thin and skinny until you gain weight. I saw this all the time in perimenopausal women who were stick skinny with all the features of UARS, but after gaining significant weight during menopause, the low blood pressure and cold hands got better. One proposed theory about why this happens is that the breathing pauses get longer and longer, leading to much lower oxygen levels. You also have more severe episodes of acid reflux into your throat, which numbs the protective chemical and pressure sensors in your voice box and throat. So you won't wake up as quickly or swallow with each event. As a result, the apneas get longer and longer. Just a brief technical note about UARS. One of the effects of frequent obstructed breathing in both UARS and sleep apnea is the production of what's called atrial natriuretic peptide, or ANP, which is made from the heart. When your throat closes and you take a deep breath, the right atrial chamber of the heart gets distended, and the heart thinks that there's too much blood coming in. So it makes ANP, which goes to your kidneys to make more urine, peeing out more salts and lowering your blood pressure. And then as a result of lower blood volume and increased levels of stress in your body due to frequent breathing pauses and microarousals, blood is diverted away from your distant extremities like your hands and feet, as well as from your digestive system. So this can lead to cold hands and feet and poor digestion. It can also explain why you may feel dizzy when you get up too quickly. While our 3 boys were younger, we didn't pay as much attention to our health, but as both of us got older, there were a number of significant milestones that I can remember. The time frames are a bit blurry, but it shouldn't matter. The important point here is that all the revelations as a result of these events eventually morphed into our current philosophy of health and wellness that we both practice to the best of our ability. And I can honestly say that I feel so much better now in my mid-50s than I ever did in my 20s or 30s. If I remember correctly, what triggered my quest to sleep better and feel better was about 7 to 8 years ago when I began to feel more sluggish and tired, along with brain fog. I initially chalked it up to being extra busy as a surgeon with 3 growing boys, but it led me to seek help from one of my dental colleagues who specialized in treating the airway. I ended up undergoing the Advanced Lightwear Functional or Alpha appliance for about 2 years, followed by Invisaligns. My palate expanded significantly from about 35 to 36 millimeters to 41 to 42 millimeters, and my teeth became much straighter. I also started sleeping better as well. But then for my 50th birthday, I scheduled a colonoscopy, which was uneventful. However, for about the following 5 to 6 months, I had severe bloating, alternating diarrhea and constipation. My severe fatigue also came back. Before the colonoscopy, I was fine. Kathy was also having her own digestive issues for years and had removed all sugar, dairy, and gluten from her diet with good results. I started doing the same and started to feel better, as well as experimenting with various supplements and probiotics. Slowly, I began to feel better as well. A bit later, I began to look into various other holistic health topics and came across toxins that we're commonly exposed to, such as glyphosate, mercury, fluoride, endocrine disruptors, and even formaldehyde. Then I had another revelation. I thought about any potential toxic exposures, and I had plenty. I had mercury dental fillings as a child and teenager, and I still do. However, there was one particular incident that opened my eyes, and I can't ever close them again to these issues. A few months before I began my Alpha appliance, my PCP twisted my arm to get a tetanus booster during my annual physical exam. I was reluctant but agreed when she kept insisting. Later, when I began looking up more information about toxins, I was shocked to find out that all the tetanus boosters have both aluminum and formaldehyde, and some also include glutaraldehyde or mercury. I'll place a link to a list of all the ingredients in our vaccines that's put out by the FDA. I covered the potential dangers of aluminum and dementia in a previous video. And formaldehyde and glutaraldehyde are fixatives that are used for cadavers and for use in pathology to preserve and stabilize tissues for analysis. Formaldehyde is a known Class 1 carcinogen as reported by the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer. As a result of a major change in our diet, both Kathy and I began to feel and sleep much better. It's never going to be perfect, but how we sleep and feel is directly related to what we eat, when we eat, along with various other healthy habits. I have to admit that I'm very sensitive to any medical intervention. Pretty much almost 100% of the time, I have severe adverse reactions after any prescription medication or even minor surgery. And now that Kathy and I are eating and living more toxin-free lives, even a minor change in our eating habits can temporarily change how we feel, especially when we travel. Now let's go back to how all this connects with upper airway resistance syndrome. Personally, I had a few sleep studies and none of them ever came back with a sleep apnea diagnosis. I even tested myself using a finger probe oxygen meter recently and I didn't have any drops in my oxygen levels. However, I'm very sensitive to any degree of nasal congestion, neck position, and how close to bedtime I eat, all of which affect how well I breathe at night while minimizing acid reflux. Remember that any degree of acid reflux into the throat causes inflammation and swelling, which aggravates more apneas. Furthermore, what comes up is not just acid, but also bile, digestive enzymes, and bacteria. They've actually found pepsin, a major digestive enzyme in people's sinuses, ears, and inside the lungs as well. And remember what I mentioned before about how chronic acid exposure damages the protective reflexes in the throat as well. In my next video, I'll reveal 10 things that I do with my current health regimen. These are items that I recommend for my patients and clients, and I apply them personally as well. Click up here to see the 10 things on my list right now.